Starting three, two, one. Hello，大家好，我是你们的 Leo。今天没有教程啊，今天请来了一位重量级嘉宾，我的之前一位好朋友，而现在跟我一起在 Tesla 做 concept artist。So David Tilton used to working from the film industry. Welcome, David.
Hey, glad to be here.
Hey, sorry, I don't have a camera right now, so like I think people like to see you more than me. So
Yeah, no, it's
okay,
all good,
so
all good.
so you are from LA, right?
Yeah, exactly. Originally I'm from the East Coast of the U.S., but currently I live in Los Angeles. Yeah.
Oh, nice. How long you been there for?
Oh, geez, like on and off for like 5 years now. So like lived here for 2 years back in 2015 to 2016 or
Okay,
2017. I moved to Austin, Texas for a couple years, and then moved back here back during December 2019, and I've been
mm-hmm.
here ever since. Yeah.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So like last time we talked, I just know like say, geez, you are only like 20 something, eh?
Yeah, no, I'm
You
25
pretend young
now.
guys.
Yeah, yeah. So,
All right.
still pretty young, thankfully.
So how long you been in this industry? Like for now?
Geez. So I got my first job when I was 19. So I was like what 2015, late 2015, I think. Um,
2015.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
nice. I just
So
like 2015, just graduate, like me, the second graduate from the Seneca College. Not sure you heard
okay.
about, yeah, in Toronto.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
awesome.
nice. So do you wanna go to your art station so we can check up your some artwork?
Yeah, for sure. Let me switch from the webcam over to the screen share real quick.
Sure. Oh, you play guitar, eh?
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah. I've got before I switch it over, I guess. Yeah, I've got this guy. Uh, yeah.
If you wanna, you can. If you wanna, you
No,
can solo here.
no. Maybe later. I won't play it today, but yeah, no. I try to play like every night if I can.
Ah,
Um,
I
it's
saw so many like concept or people like in this industry like always do music as me. Like I do. I can play guitar. I really want, but like it take time to practice, right? So I just
yeah.
like
Do you make music? Or
yeah. I have a lot of the synthesizer.
oh, nice. Like
Yeah.
NPCs and stuff like that.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
uh,
MPC and TR-909,
uh,
Ableton Push.
could probably do another podcast on music
Oh yeah,
after
yeah,
this too,
definitely. We do
you
a
know?
we do a live music, eh?
Yeah, that'd be fun. Yeah.
All right. Okay, back to the topic. Eh? So, yeah, I remember the first time I went through our station, like, wow, like this guy like work on those like big title films. Do you wanna quick introduce like your credits on the film? I heard of it. Like, I'm not sure you have been in the game industry yet, or always in the film.
Yeah, so I've worked a bit in the games industry, but a majority of it is in film. I guess I'll just go through, I think because this has the posters on it, yeah.
Okay, here we
So
go.
I've been like, this is like an animated series that was done for HBO, called Gemlock, which was fun because I got to do a lot of pre-production and like blue sky artwork and like help world build a lot,
Oh,
which
okay.
is like super rare because usually it's like you usually have all the lore and like world building done for you, or it's like part of like a bigger uh, intellectual property like an IP. Like if you were to
Mm-hmm.
work on like Marvel films, for example, um, there's already like a lot of backstory. So like this had none. So like I got to like help come up with that, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then like worked on like a few movies here and there, doing like concept designs. Or some of
Nice.
them are pretty famous, I guess. Like
Black
Thor and
Panther. I
yeah,
like the character a lot, eh?
yeah. No, it's a really cool like concept as far as like the whole design that they came up with and
Mm-hmm.
how it was used in the film. Like Blade Runner, Game of
E.
Thrones. Um,
Blade Runner is always my heart.
Yeah, no, it was one of the funnest projects I've worked on, I'd say. It was a
Okay.
good time. And then I guess as far as the clients I've had, I've worked with Tesla currently,
Oh,
um,
nice.
Lucasfilm,
Hmm.
NetEase Games, PsyOp, The Mill, Luma, a bunch of big VFX companies, and yeah, that's pretty much been my career up until
Wow.
this point. Because my first
Wonderful.
job was with Luma there, which was a ton of fun. They really treated me well there. Really good company.
Where? Oh, Los Angeles. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, they're over here in Santa Monica, like by the beach. So, uh,
Nice.
yeah.
It's so all the films I mean the film studio worked on, it's the VFX studio, or they also do the pre-concept.
So most of these VFX studios I've worked with, they do pre-production work
Oh,
actually,
okay.
um, and which was like really unique, I guess, because it helped allowed me to like circumvent the typical way of working on films, which would you'd have to like join a union. It's called the
Right.
Art Directors Guild. Um, and then at the time, I was like super new to the industry when I was working on these things. So I didn't have the experience to join the union at the time.
Hmm.
Um, so like working through these studios allowed me to like touch these projects and work on them and you know uh, in the pre-production phase. Like for example, like on Blade Runner, like Denis Villeneuve, the director, came in every once in a while and
Oh.
would talk to the team. Um,
Hmm.
and like experiences like that are super invaluable, and yeah, I'm super thankful for.
I saw you worked on also on the Master Studio. I remember one of my friend worked there as well. He called
Oh yeah.
Sean. Not sure you heard about.
Yeah, which office was he in? Was he like in
Uh,
Montreal or?
oh, it's I think it's from the Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver office. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Their studios are so big, like a lot of the VFX houses. So I've probably
Right.
seen his stuff like on the servers or like when I was working there, like um the stuff that he did.
Nice. Yeah, you remember the if you like say as I heard, I'm not really know that, but you mentioned the unison in
Oh,
the
yeah, the Union. Yeah.
yeah, so that one like it feels like it's always the secret, like the people want to touch the film, and especially for the big ones, so you have to join the union first, and then you have the opportunity to touch those or get a relationship with the people there.
Yeah, exactly. It allows you to like work on those projects for um like from start to finish.
Hmm.
Which it's there in place to like I guess like allow uh people to continuously get jobs, right? So it's like
Okay.
a worker security sort of thing, which I think is pretty cool. But yeah, it is a bit like vague how you get in there, right? Because there's not a ton of information, but like
Hmm.
the main way that like a bunch of like people that I know have gotten in is you have to work on a project while it's being in the process of getting greenlit. So like as
Oh.
it's being pushed into production, and then you'd be able to hop onto that project, like a full-time capacity, and be able
Hmm.
to, and then they'd add you to the union. But certain projects only have a set amount of union spots.
Hmm.
So like like I don't know the exact numbers off the top of my head, but like let's say if you're working on like a random Marvel movie, there might only be like a few union spots available, like like 3 or 4 or something, or like if you're working on like Avatar or Blade Runner, for example. So and then usually they go back and work with people that are in the union already. Um,
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's typically how it works.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's the same with the China. like film industry, like you barely heard like people open hire for people for film. So yeah, I think it's kind of like the same way.
Yeah, no, I think it's that way in most places. Like I think also like if films like shoot in Australia, they have to hire some people that are in like their unions as well, um, or London, right? So
Hmm.
I think it's also location dependent in a lot of ways as well.
Hmm. In Canada, I never um, heard like so many studios. I barely be a before concept artist for gaming, so I barely be the map painter before. I got my job like the first offer, so do the map painting, but the second offer was a concept, so I picked the concept,
Yeah.
so I didn't. Yeah, lost my chance getting to be your colleague maybe.
Oh yeah, no, that would have been crazy. But we know a ton of people like we have a ton of mutual friends, so you know.
Nice, nice.
Uh,
So yeah, you wanna go through your production
yeah.
work first, and then what kind of like which film gonna like make you improve a lot on skill set or expand your skills or your mindset, give you
Yeah.
a lot of like powers.
Yeah, let me pull up some stuff. I'd say like the one that was the most helpful. Let me just navigate to the folder real quick. Um, I'd say like Blade Runner, just because it was very much a like fast-paced, project, but it was like you were learning a ton, um,
Right.
and sort of like forced to learn a ton at the same time, like because like,
Hmm.
or at least for me, like as like joining a team full of like super amazing people, that were like some of the best in the industry. So
Like you guys like physically work together or somebody like remote work as well?
yeah, so my team was like it was 12 people or 10 people actually, that were working in like a small studio in Venice, supporting the stuff that was being done in the other studios.
Hmm.
Um, so like we had like a bit more direct contact with like the directors and like those sort of people because they tend to be in the Los Angeles area. So we were like their main point of contact for like when they'd fly in.
Hmm.
So we ended up seeing like a lot of like directors, and for like Blade Runner, we saw Denny a couple of times. And he'd always come in and talk with the team and stuff, which is super exciting because now you see the guy, doing talks for like ILM and stuff, and it's like I got to talk to him for free. So, um, yeah, it's a super super um, great opportunity that I had.
Yeah, workplace is always, I think, the best, the super, the most creative people be around you, and then you can definitely make a lot of improvement out there instead of like from the school, find a teacher and dedicate learn something. Yeah, the work experience is definitely like for me as example. So I think during your work you can definitely learn how to real work instead of just like produce cool images.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Like that's how I went about it. Is that like I got to a certain level when I was like first starting out, and then like got that first job and used that first job as like a form of school in a way, like it
Hmm.
because you're forced to learn, and you and like you always want to get better and stuff, like or at least I feel like most people always have that drive to push themselves to that next level. Um,
Right. So yeah, tell us a little bit like how did you get in the industry? Like what drive you feels like okay, so CG, I mean, or film even, so gonna be your career like for the lifetime maybe?
Yeah, so like the things that inspired me the most, it'd be Star Wars, like like probably like Akira and Ghost in the Shell. Like I watched a lot of anime growing up, and like if people saw like during my webcam intro at the beginning, I had like a bunch of Hayao Miyazaki, like Studio Ghibli posters on my wall.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like those are big inspirations as well. Um, and you know, like I always go back to those even now, just because they're so unique visually, and set like so many like precedents and like I guess just like storytelling, and then also from like a design standpoint, they're always like super inspiring, and that's like for film stuff. And then I guess like games that inspired me a lot were like the Metal Gear games, um, and geez, like what else?
Like
Like
last time you you said like you spent the whole night to playing the Halo, eh?
oh yeah, like Halo. Halo's a big one. Like that's
Uh-huh.
a huge inspiration. Like that's one thing I wish I could work on eventually. Would be some of the Halo games. But yeah, like
Right.
and recently Elden Ring, I guess, has been like the big one for me.
Yeah, everybody is playing the Arena right now. It's I mean, especially like I think a month ago, like all the people I know is like playing that game. Holy shit! It's some people like say it's so like 1 million something 2 weeks or 1 week. It's crazy.
Yeah, yeah. No, I've already spent I think 80 hours or something. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's you know, like I'll turn it on at like, you know, after work, right? Like
Hmm.
at like, you know, 7, 8 p.m. And then I'll look down at the clock and it's, you know, 2 a.m. or something. I'll be like, oh, I gotta go to bed now. You know, it goes by so fast.
You gotta make people feel like jealous, like you can play game at 7 p.m. Like like
Yeah,
like some
yeah.
situation down here is a little bit crazy. It's yes, like people do a lot of overtime work.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, like I used to do a bunch of overtime stuff myself, but you know, like it got unhealthy at a certain point, you know. So
Hmm.
trying to this year, like 2022, I'm trying to stop that, you know, like like have a bit of a cutoff point, I guess, for work purpose stuff.
Right. So for being a concept artist, no matter for film or gaming, like which person, I mean, is like in your career, like so say, okay, so I really want to learn from this guy, and yeah, is there any person like to push you to do something better and better?
Yeah, so let me pull up. There's two people. Um, so everyone will know this guy.
Oh, Jama, eh?
Yes, everybody knows him. So Jama was a huge help in my like journey, and like career path and all this other stuff. Um,
Mhm.
like he did a Learn Squared mentorship. Like what it was like back in like 2015, I think, like early 2015, late 2014.
Mhm.
I ended up taking it, and like it was my first time like using 3D as like for like art purposes, because before it was a lot of like photo bashing, like stuff like this,
Right.
where it was just like, you know, like collaging photos together, or painting and doing like stuff like that. And I never really used like you know 3D to this level at the time. Um,
Mhm.
so like the mentorship was like super insightful, because he, you know, went over his entire process, gave you paint overs and feedback and all that. Um, and it was really fun, because I talked to Jama before the mentorship as well, like months and months before, and like we played StarCraft once in a while together, and like just like I got to pick his brain before I even got like actually like, you know, went all the way in on taking the mentorship and stuff. And he was like super friendly, like super awesome guy.
Mhm.
And like I don't know, I always look at him as like a big brother figure, you know. So and yeah, every time I see him, it's always fun to just like catch up and you know, say hi and, you know, see how his life's going, and you know he'll do the same with me every once in a while.
Right.
Um, so that's one of my main influences.
I do believe like at that time, like Jama went to Toronto, so me and you and Zappy gonna be there. We should like met already couple years before, so before we become co-workers right now.
Yeah, no. At Edge Control, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Like that was a fun time. Because like I don't know, like having that many like amazing artists in like one spot is kind of ridiculous, right? Like doesn't happen a lot, you know. So it's always so fun when it does. Um,
Right.
but this is my other like main like I guess mentor figure when I was starting out. My buddy Bo Zonneveld. He's a Dutch-born like concept artist, and he currently works in Germany for Character Studios, which worked on Game of Thrones and the Shadow of Mordor games or Shadow of War and all that, like the Lord of the Rings games,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a few other projects. But he's also worked on like a ton of Marvel films as well, and like Call of Duty and a bunch of other stuff. He was one of the first few One Pixel Brush
Oh.
members back when Shadi Safari first made that studio.
Mm-hmm.
He was like one of like the first like 10 people to join the studio at the time. Um, but his work's amazing, and he taught me like how to photo bash and the good composition and all the all the basics, right?
Right.
And like I just met him on forums and like Google Hangouts and like Skype chats and stuff and that sort of thing. We just became friends from there, and uh, super awesome guy, and I also owe him a lot. So like I guess these two, both Bo and Jama are like the two main ones.
Nice. So yeah, so like you mentioned like two guys. It's definitely like from the workflow. So tell you how to, from photo bashing to 3D key bash maybe and modeling from right now, right? You do a lot of modeling right now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
So
tons of
so yeah.
modeling. You know too from work.
Oh yeah, it's
So
gonna
tons of modeling.
screw me down.
Uh,
Yeah, so yeah. So as you mentioned Jama, I remember the early times that I follow him, it's he have the tutorial for 3D code. I think back in 2016, 16, 15.
yeah, that was the one I took actually. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I think there's like recordings of. Oh wait, did I spell that? Go to their
Yeah,
site, but
so
there's recordings of me on there too. I think like in the like the journey, like like where they had like record like the I guess like main students' work and stuff. It was like Ash Thorpe was there, I think, too, and like a few others.
right. I remember he had
This one.
what is that? Yeah. Introduce 3D concept design, another one, a narrative concept art. I think the two.
Yeah, yeah, he has another one, the narrative concept art one here too.
Right.
But they're super useful. Like even now, like they're probably some of the best stuff for learning this kind of concept art, like the very like narrative driven keyframes, like how to like you know use 3D but also keep those story elements and fresh thinking in your work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so like I don't know, even now like I always recommend people to go through these. But everything on this site is also good. I don't know. I'm a huge fan of Learn Squared in general, just for their content and stuff. Um, but you get to like download. Oh, there's me. I always do testimonials for
Oh,
them. Yeah. Yeah. But
superstar students.
yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. But yeah, there's always like really good stuff. You can see like the students' work here from some of the recent people, and it's really good work. And you learn all the techniques through his tutorial. So
So
um,
during the mentorship, like what it feels like the most benefit or most valuable thing you gain from Jama or Ball?
just their thinking, like how they think about stuff, because like it's very easy. Like I've learned to like learning tools is like super duper easy. Like if you can get into the right mindset. But knowing how to use those tools and knowing how to bend those tools to your will to make um, I guess like your best image possible for whatever you're making, or tell the best story, or come up with the best design that you can in the time given, um, is the hardest thing. Is the thing that they uh, instilled in me the most. I guess was like that sort of thinking,
Right.
and just like how they go about that. And I still use like some of their you know uh, thought processes with how I work and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, no, like pretty much like I guess like the main thing from like Jama, for example, would be like it's something that's like super all over the place now and is like such a big part of design for most people. Is just like the like big, medium, small, and that design rule where it's like you always have a big shape, right? You'd have like a big building, right? And then you'd have like your medium shapes, which would be like these like black windows here, like those panels, and then you'd have like the smaller shapes would be like the cross beams, for example, like
Mm-hmm.
the antennas here. And then like having that throughout all your designs and like all bits of your image like helps pull things together and make everything seem really cohesive.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then like from Bo, it was like a lot of like composition and like how to, I guess, make stuff that doesn't feel as I don't want to say generic, but as like as like the usual, right? Where people tend to always rely on like rule of thirds, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
like they won't think about where the horizon line is placed, for example, in their image, and like how that could affect how like dynamic the scene would be, or like the different camera lenses you could choose if you're using 3D, for example, or like how to fake that if you're photo bashing, and understanding what certain lenses look like. I think was the like one of the most valuable things that he taught me. And then
Mm-hmm.
also like just all the other like technical stuff of like I always send him like paintings for feedback, and he'd always like get back to me, or we'd hop on calls or whatever, and he'd be like, do this, don't do that, which was amazing, especially starting out.
Yeah, so from my experience, like the feedback from the good people is always, or I'm gonna say, so like super useful instead of like telling you some like general rules like how to do good things. Like case by case one is definitely, I mean, the most similar to your real production work. So yeah, the feedback is so valuable.
No, exactly. And like you learn so much from feedback like that from people that are, years ahead of you. So
Mhm.
it's always super valuable.
Which one it's your first 3D, 3D painting or use 3D one for
Oh
your personal
geez.
work?
Let me see. I think this I'd say because this was for the class.
It's really drama.
Yes, exactly. And yeah, no, like this was pulling out all the tricks, at the time at least. Now it doesn't really hold up for me personally, but
Mhm.
that's always good if you can see your own mistakes after a bit of time. So, um, but I just leave it up just for the memories. Um,
Right.
but yeah, this was the first one. So using 3D coat, like the same sort of techniques that were done here, but with some paint over. And then yeah, I think it for the time it was like my most successful image. But then from there, I ended up using like the same techniques to make this guy here, um, which was like a more refined version of like integrating all the techniques I knew at the time,
Hmm.
um, which was a ton of fun, and it was a good experience. But
Like for your, like say, personal work such as this. So how long you already study on you spend on this like practice?
Oh geez. Like as far as like per image or as
Yeah.
far as like this one like at the time it like took a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or like a week and a couple days. Because a lot of it was like gathering reference because I didn't know how to model certain things. And like trial and error, learning techniques and stuff. Um, and like implementing those techniques, like for example, like different like ways of extruding out bits of the geometry or different like Photoshop techniques and stuff. Because I was still learning at the time, so I didn't have like a set workflow like I do now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it was more about like at this time it was about establishing that workflow, I guess. So like now like I could probably if I were to remake this, I'd probably be able to do it in like like 3 days now. 2 days if it was a crazy deadline. Um,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know, which I'm super happy of like getting to that point um, where like executing stuff like this isn't as hard.
Yeah, I know it's a really hard process, like say to re evaluate your personal work. I mean, like or my personal work. So sometimes like, I look at something I did like a couple years ago or even like half years ago, I feels like, oh damn, I can even do better or certain details or the design. And yeah, I always feels like every day or every week so I can have something fresh. And I just don't want to like hold up too much time on one thing, right? So this is why I ask you like how much time you spend on the one personal work, because I think like there are two different group people. One is like say I just want to finish one and maybe I got the inspiration from some film, so I quickly done one in like as much as 1 week. So
Yeah.
another group people say I want to spend as much as time I can on one piece, like to throw up all my skills on one thing and practice.
Oh, yeah, make it perfect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, like I'm super like into that camp of like just make a bunch of stuff and like don't spend more than a week and just kind of just make something new as much as you can. I feel like you get better that way too,
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
you're always looking at your old stuff and seeing what you did wrong and making mistakes, but seeing the mistakes you made like helps you get like better way faster, I think.
Do you feel like which one is most improved like through the production work or your personal practice?
I'd say production work was I guess like the stuff that would push me the most, but personal work would be where I'd test techniques out.
Hmm.
Like for example, like back when I was like learning Blender, it was like this guy, for example. Um, it was like something where I did it on my free time, um, but ended up using all these techniques in work again, and then pushing them even further, right? But this was more just like to get down the basics of the software.
Hmm.
Um, and yeah, like I think that's where personal work comes in for me is like how do you um, learn new techniques and then implement those like in your like profession. And that's how I tend to approach that sort of stuff.
Right. Have you feels like you already established your own style or creating, you know, keyframes or concept art? Like what kind of your design style you are looking for? Or you have the plan or you are already on the way, like say, okay, so I'm gonna go definitely that way. I don't wanna, spread it out to, try to choose something different and try to be different, or you want to be like say it feels like something like say to Jama. So I can in my first eye I can recognize, oh, this is Jama's work.
Yeah,
Right.
no, exactly. I guess like yeah, like I'm trying to just like let it be an organic process. Just make stuff, and then your style will come with time. But like I guess like the people that I look at now that I'm always just like, if I could just get to their level, it would be, that I'd be happy, right?
Hmm.
And I guess like the main guy would be Chase Stone, and he's an illustrator. He does a lot of stuff. I think this is for the Game of Thrones books, like Magic the Gathering here. But his work is amazing. He uses, like paint, the 3D photos, um, but it all looks very cohesive.
Wow,
And
I remember the one on the circle in the
oh
middle.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, this one, yeah,
yeah, that one was famous.
yeah. He's got a few. He's got this one too, which I think has been around the internet for a while. Uh, but just like how the level of finish he gets this stuff to, like if I can figure out how to do this, but do it in like the time frame of a concept art piece, like within like a week or less, right?
Hmm.
Then then I'll consider myself you know complete as an artist. I won't I won't feel bad about my skills anymore. And
Hmm.
I'll be happy. I think. Hopefully, who knows? Probably by then, I'd probably have a new goal at the time or something. But yeah, his work is amazing. So um, that's always something that I'm aspiring to get to his level.
Yeah, I look at a lot of illustrators' work as well. Like not only, I'm doing concept, I only look at like concept people's work. So yeah, something like you can tell, fresh air by seeing like those the people instead of like, go always like our station every day. You do something like always similar to others.
Yeah, yeah, no. Going on ArtStation it's like it's inspiring, right? But then
Mhm.
at the same time, it's hard to stand out, like if you keep looking at that stuff because that's all you'll be, referencing in your head as far as like
Yeah.
um so like I don't know. Personally, I tend to avoid it at least during the week. Like I'll check it on the weekends and stuff. As to see like who's posted what, like what's trending. But I try to avoid it during the work week just so I don't, get influenced by it for like work purposes. If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, the art station, I think nowadays like looks like um it's not like, the creative spring anymore to me. So it's just like a foresight, like say how the big guy is creating what kind of like high rise images, maybe take like 2 months to finish it. I want to see where's the ceiling at, right? So we can definitely okay. So this is like the finished level. So I want to reach like so I gonna check out what kind of tool he use and like how he do this, and then analyze the process. So,
Yeah. No.
but you
Exactly.
barely find something like super, super, you know, you barely see something. I think that kind of work is already, it's not like a vanish. It's just like really hard to find, like on concept people's, cause like in recent years, the movies,
Yeah.
um, right? So what kind of movie like recall you a lot or for Blade Runner and the Doom, right?
Yeah.
So that too is definitely after I watched, I never have chance to forget about it. And all the keyframes and all the camera thing, the composition, the lighting, the ways, it always appear in my mind. But other movies, definitely just like after you watch it, it feels like it's just gone.
Yeah. No. It's very much. There's too much of the same stuff going on for a lot of movies, especially like action movies and stuff now.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it's very forgetful for a lot of the stuff, you know. But yeah, yeah. So I guess that's I guess my main goals is like currently as an
Mhm.
artist as far as just you know
Oh, by the way, so tell something like your professional, like say the references side, like I know. So if you do movies, what kind of like thing you're looking for like say we do concept, we do mood boards, right? So we're collecting images on Pinterest or Google. So in one day at least, so collecting something we feels like useful to move forward. So for film, what kind of site or image you're looking for before you do something?
Yeah, like for film, like so I use Pinterest a lot. Let me just switch accounts real quick. Let's see. So like Pinterest is like super good.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, like for like film stills, Shop Deck is my main one that I go to. Um, so you can like go in here, and it's subscription based now, sadly. It's pretty inexpensive, and they curate a lot of these films and have really nice like website layout and stuff, and are like super well put together as far as like the information they have. Like they tell you like the director, the cinematographer,
Mm-hmm.
what lens was used and stuff, like the aspect ratio, um, which you can like plug this data into your like 3D package if you're using like Blender, for example. Like you can just be like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I want what does a 35 millimeter lens look like? Point it up at a building. So you don't have to like come up with that stuff. And
Oh,
me,
you really like say you really need to match the camera setting, like in the
for some stuff, like if I'm trying to like figure like let me see if they have. Let's see, Blade Runner. Like let's see, they have the shot that I'm thinking of. Like this, for example. Like they'll tell you like the aspect ratio and like camera and like this is like a 70 millimeter. So I think they shot that for the entire film, for the most part, and then they'd switch it out to like 32 millimeter for certain shots like this I think.
Mhm.
And it lets you like understand like the I guess like just the how it affects the perspective. You can also like figure that out just by playing with it in Blender. Like
Mhm.
Like let me just open up a new Blender file real quick, because like it's super interesting how
Oh, you switched the newest one, eh? It's the latest.
yes, every time I get a chance, I try to switch if I can. I just make a plane real quick. But like it's just interesting how like cameras and like I guess how they react to their like different lenses on them can influence your shot. So like
Mhm.
if you're on like a 25, let's see, I make this smaller, move this closer. So like 25 millimeter tends to like draw stuff out to be longer or feel
Mhm.
longer at least. Um,
Mhm.
and like the higher you go, like the bigger things get in the frame, right? So like this is like let's do like so like 32 millimeter for example is like a typical one that I use a lot, and it gives you like a frame that's not like super uh, stretched, but it's also not super like pulled in like in perspective.
Mhm.
Um, so it allows for like a good mix between like if you had like buildings for example, like you'd still get like the nice uh, striking lines of like the building perspective, but you wouldn't get it like super exaggerated. Like if it was like a 20 millimeter, for example, it's a bit more exaggerated. And like for close-ups, I tend to use like 70 millimeter because it gives like a nice clean read on stuff. And from there, I typically just change what angle I want depending on the story. Like if you're looking
Mhm.
up at something, for example, it's more dramatic, that sort of thing. if you're like looking down on it, you might be more of like an establishing shot. And each one would have like their own different lens, and you know have their own uses. So yeah, like it's something to be aware of, which is why I always go back and look at like this film stuff, for example. 'Cause it's always keeps me aware of how they use this stuff in real life, I guess, like real world settings, I guess.
Okay. Sounds like you really go into each image like to analyze what kind of shot and what kind of aspect ratio and the what kind of camera they use. So they like in real life. So even though you do 3D, so you wanna learn from those directors' ways, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's the cool thing about 3D is that you can, use that same knowledge,
Right.
and it's pretty much one for one. It's just a digital version, but you got your camera that you can move around and stuff, and it acts like how a real camera would. So, which is super cool.
Hmm. Yeah. So like Blender is your first 3D software.
No, so 3D Coat was so like
Okay.
I guess like my first big thing that I like built 3D Coat was like that city that I showed previously, and then also
What do you use for, say, for example, Blender, Blade Runner?
oh, so at the time that was all photos actually. Like I
Okay.
barely used 3D at the time, just because of how fast things would be. But at the time, like I was using Cinema 4D when I did have to use 3D.
Okay.
And that was before Blender got really good. Eventually, I did end up switching over like a couple years after that to what was it? It was like 2.78 or 7.7 or something like that. It was like way before the current
Yeah, the UI looks suck.
UI change. It was like let me see if I can Google it. It looked very different.
Yeah, I started from like 2.7 something. Like it's like instead of like right now they
Looked
move
like this.
vertically. Yeah, they do horizontally like this.
Yeah, it was so different. Like, and most of the hotkeys stayed the same, but it just felt
Hmm.
old, I guess. Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah, exactly. Um, but you can see the diff. This is like a side by side comparison, I guess. What it used to look like, and then the newer versions. Um, but yeah, the Blender's a game changer of a tool. It's probably the best 3D tool, at least for concept artists, I'd say.
Yeah, so when you feel like Blender become the main tool, especially for concept artists.
I'd say like 2018, I think, is when like everyone really started to pick it up. Because that's like when Jama started using it, and like Jama ended up actually like what was it? Let me see if I can find. This is the guy he taught me and he taught Jama tricks in Blender, but he was like one of the first guys, like concepts wise, to be using uh, Blender, which is my friend Andrea here. And he used it like to a level that nobody really was at the time. So like we all picked his brain on like how he approached that sort of stuff.
Hmm.
And he does film like intro cinematics, like like the intros to like James Bond or something, where it's like super dramatic looking, or like Westworld stuff like that, or like Godzilla had a good one, which I think he worked on here, where they have like the very cinematic intros. But he used Blender for all this stuff,
Wow.
but like way before everyone. So like that's when I started using it so early. It was because of this guy, and then like Jama started releasing his tutorials from the stuff he picked up when he was exploring the tool on his own time. And then I think from there everybody really started using it. But like, it was interesting to see how like everybody ended up switching from like Cinema 4D and like more of the like I guess I used Cinema 4D on this back then. To like more like Blender heavy stuff where it's like you got your real-time lighting, for example, and with Eevee, and cycles is pretty quick, and you can do most of your stuff in your viewport compared to like waiting for renders and previewing all the stuff by waiting for like a small render of your scene to be kicked out. But yeah, I think if like anyone was to learn a tool now, I think Blender would be like the top of that list along with Photoshop.
Right.
There's so many tutorials now for it as well, between like Blender Guru with his donut tutorial and his he just did like a Last of Us sort of abandoned house, which is really cool. So he's got like a huge range of tutorials.
Yeah, I remember someone like using the geometry node to make
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
The
I think that's
basic.
the new one. Yeah.
Have you looked into it yet?
I watched it just to see what he was doing, but I think he uses it to like make the sprinkles on the donut now. This
Oh, this one.
yeah. So he's
Everybody did this.
So this is like the place to start, but like he uses the geometry nodes to like put the sprinkles on there, which is like super cool. So and he teaches you how to do this little animation and stuff too, which is always useful to know how to animate stuff. I mean, like that's becoming more and more of a thing that concept artists have to do is like little um, functionality like demos, I guess, or functionality animations of how like a prop may work, like if it was like, or if it's like a weird sci-fi door, how it would open, or like if it was like a gun, like how would you reload it and unload it, and like take out the clip or like all this other stuff, which is so it's always like super valuable to know how to do this stuff. And he goes over everything. Once you do this donut tutorial, you'll know everything you need to know. So
Is there any other Blender tutorial site or YouTube channels you want to share?
yeah, I guess. Let's see. This guy, I think it's this guy. Like for like if you're doing like motion graphic stuff, this guy's super valuable. For that sort of like more like trippy like Instagram like looping stuff, is super interesting. Uh,
Ducky 3D.
yes, Ian Hubert is another good one. This guy.
It's my hero.
No, he's mine as well. For Blender stuff, he's probably one of the best. He has these lazy tutorials where it's like a
Oh yeah,
minute
that.
long, and he goes over how to make like
Uh-huh.
anything from like cities to like all this other crazy stuff, in like a matter of like for like you making it might take you like 30 minutes, an hour maybe, but he goes over it in a minute, and it's really informative, even though it's only a minute long. Um, and he shows you how to make a ton of stuff, and I've learned so much from him. He has a Patreon as well, which I've also subscribed to. And then since we're talking about like Patreon stuff just now, another guy is William Landgren. He's like, I want to say 15 or 16 or something like that. He's super young.
15. Okay.
Yeah, but he makes these crazy cinematics.
Jeez, spit it out first and then do
Yeah,
work.
no, exactly. Like he does, like it's if people are familiar with Ash Thorpe's work, it's very similar to that. He's doing it all in Blender. but he has a Patreon. There's a little ad for it here. But he has like all these tutorials and assets that he hands out and
Jeez.
records video processes. So I've learned a lot from going through his stuff as well.
Can't imagine that like 15 years old boy like doing this crazy shit.
Yeah, it's crazy because it shows he's been using Blender for I think it's 3 years now. Yeah, 3 years now. This is his
Uh,
2 year progression. So he started with like this stuff, right? So it's not like amazing at all. Like it's very much, basic stuff, right? But then as he got more and more obsessed with it, he got better and better, right? Like his lighting got
mhm.
better. Eventually he started doing like full blown like short films, like tests and stuff. This is amazing already, right?
Yeah.
But then he ended up making this thing, which was like where I saw him. It's like a minute long like car animation, like it's like the construction of a car, like and like it's got like you know amazing sound design, which he also did. Like so, it's like he's like a one man army, which is crazy.
Don't let Tesla solve him.
I
Otherwise
I
we're
know.
gonna lose our jobs, eh?
Yeah. Um, but yeah, no. So he's even though he's way younger than me, I've learned a lot, by watching his tutorials and stuff as well. Um,
Can't
so
believe this. It's like, I mean, to produce one image is
yeah,
okay, but doing short film, I know how hard it is.
yeah. No, this is crazy hard for like the people that haven't like attempted this sort of stuff. It takes so much time and effort and like planning to like get even just one of these shots, like even just figuring out how to do like even this
Yeah.
like the simple camera move wobble, like making that look good. This is a whole nother story, like
Mm-hmm.
the car and the rain and all this other stuff.
He
um
got a he got a 3090.
yeah, no, exactly. So
Wow.
amazing, yeah. But he's another good, a big, like super big and good inspiration for like Blender stuff. I'd say like Ian and William are probably the two best Blender users right now. I'd say
Mm-hmm.
just as far as knowledge and stuff.
Yeah, it feels like Blender, like to them, it's not like just 3D modeling tool anymore. So you can definitely do be their own VFX studio thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's just a storytelling tool at this point, for them. I feel like it's
Right.
just like a means to an end. Like I feel like they could also like go out like if you gave them like a 2 million or a $10 million budget or whatever, and to go make a short film, right? They could
Mm-hmm.
probably like go get the real cameras, all the real stuff, and also do that because they also have the knowledge of like
Right.
certain shots and
Cinematography thing.
cinematography and all this other stuff. Exactly. Like which is why I tend to study that same stuff because it does carry over, like back into your own work. Because like it is like super hard to like make this stuff up if you don't know what you're looking at, I guess. Like if you don't understand
Mm.
um, like how depth of field works or like why they choose certain lenses or angles or framing for certain things, and like that effect and what it might have on your story. Um,
So you gonna learn this as well when you do concept for film, or you just focus on the design?
for like film stuff, like I tended to focus on the design
Mm-hmm.
only, and occasionally like we do like animations, like if but it was mostly just like for design purposes. Um, and like now, like especially at Tesla, like I'm trying to do more animations when I can, like if I because it just shows the design better. Um,
Right.
but eventually, I'd want to like make like I don't know, a little short film, something like what William did here,
Mm-hmm.
because I find it like super interesting because like I know the tools now to achieve this, so now it's just a matter of planning it out and making the thing, I guess.
Right.
So
It's just like the render take a lot time.
yeah, that's my main problem. Like, so I've got a 3090, and like it's like it's a computer I just built recently, but I need like probably like 4 more 3090s if I want to do it in a reasonable time, you know, or build a
Yeah.
render farm or something, or send it out to one, which sort of sucks, but maybe when a couple years when the new cards get, when it's like 5090s or 6090s or something, then I'll be able to just have one card and that'll be able to render a short film.
Yeah, I remember one day, I think it's Ben Mura or Jamas, like just share their gift from the Nvidia. So they got like a four. I remember the time, just when the time like the 3090 just came out.
Yeah, it was this
So one of
guy.
them posted like 4 3090 something. Jeez.
Yeah, it was this guy that built them. It was this. I think he's from
Oh
Poland.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
He builds like these custom computers, which are like crazy intricate. Like they're all like water cooled and custom cases and stuff. But it's like I wanted to get one, but it's like it's
It
twenty
doesn't look
thousand
like
dollars for
20,000.
yeah for one.
$20,000 is
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, a little bit more expensive.
Yeah. So I'm saving up for it, So eventually, but it's
So this,
crazy because
yeah,
these are
this is
just
why.
supercomputers.
I mean, this is why the renter farm exists. So you
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
save you the money.
So you don't have to do this. Yeah, exactly. But this is like a little home render farm, of the stuff that this guy's making. I think Paul Chattison, I think they're also has like a computer from this guy. I know Bo does, the guy that I was mentioning earlier. He also
Hmm.
has one of these. So I think eventually everyone might need one, depending on how crazy the standards get. Um, you know, as far as like if they want, 10 years from now, it's gonna be like AI stuff or something crazy. So who knows? Who knows, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy.
Geez, I'm jealous for this, to be honest. Yeah. I just like every time I hit the render button, so I said like I'll wait like, okay, you go render, I go sleep.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. So um, that's something I'd want to get to. Just a crazy, amazing beast of a computer.
Yeah. All right. So for Blender, do you want to show your process, like how to, do the details and like how do you build up like from empty to a 3D scene and yeah, just roughly introduce your workflow
Yeah, for sure.
from 3D to 2D.
Yeah, let me just pull up some stuff real quick.
Okay.
So I guess it'd be best to go through like the general process of how I approach this stuff. Uh, I'll
Mm-hmm.
open up the main peer ref. So typically, like I always reference search when possible. So I'm gonna be using this Legend of Zelda fan art that I did earlier. Um, so I tend to like if I'm basing it off of like a pre-existing like IP, I'll look up stuff from that like IP and like see what people have done previously, like in the games. So like for
Mm-hmm.
this case, it was like the Master Sword, like shrine area, like where he gets the sword. So I was just seeing like what all the other games did, and, like how they made them unique, and like the different biomes that they placed them in. Like so, it tended to be a lot of forests, and occasionally there'd be like dead trees or ruins around, like here. Um, but for the most part, it was more of like a moody, like uh, forest fantasy environment.
Mm-hmm.
So like like there's god rays that I wanted, so I made sure to write that down. And then more reference to inspire the rest of it. And from there, I ended up doing a quick sketch, just like super quick and dirty, just to get the idea out.
So you're
Just so
always starting from, sketch in 2D,
yeah,
right?
if possible. Sometimes
Mhm.
I don't have time for that, and then
Mhm.
I'll like know what I want in my head already. Like I can just like visually see it. So I'll just start building out what I need to build out and create the composition in 3D.
Mhm.
But typically I'll try to do like a quick sketch first, just so like I know in like its most purest form what the image will look like and like if it will work or not. So
Mhm.
like like I wanted something that was very, I guess, well thought out as far as like composition and the placement of objects and like how light might hit certain objects to make them stand out more.
Right.
And then from there, I ended up building out the scene in 3D and exploring different compositions, like how I could use 3D to like enhance them. Um, and like I just use basic shapes and just like spheres and cubes and stuff, and just seeing how I could approach that. And just seeing what different camera angles and lenses.
I like the character design.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Um, yeah, no, it's perfect, right? It looks just like him.
Yeah, the Minecraft version.
Exactly. But so like it was super valuable just to because this is like the same height as the 3D character that I put in eventually for the final image, um, and seeing like how different placement of in the scene would affect it, like both lighting wise, as far as like
Mhm.
the mood, and then also like how like things would stand out compositionally. I made sure to always have like the sword, which is just this little cross thing here, be lit by light and always have like that very stark contrast.
Mhm.
And then from there, I build out the thing in 3D
Jeez.
fully using assets. And let's see if it's gonna crash or not. There we go. So some of these assets I had previously from other projects, where it was like bushes and trees and stuff, so I'd reuse those. Um, but like all this rubble and stuff I built out, and like trying to match that composition
Mhm.
that I had. So like some of these are more custom for this composition or this scene in general. But I tried to get like that same dappled lighting that I had on like the God rays that I mentioned back in like this reference here. I was like trying to go for that same effect, and achieve that. Thankfully, it took a bit of trickery and messing around with stuff in
Mhm.
3D to get that, like the volume and like fog, I guess. But in Blender, it's called volume. Uh, but from here you can like go in and then like use this. Like if I wanted to keep exploring the compositions, like I could make like a new camera, and then from here, just make this. It's flash around. I could like make it so like, oh, I want like this shot instead. Like it might look more interesting, right? And then from there I could be like, oh, I want some trees in the background. And then I could like take this tree, if it lets me. Let's see. It's always during streams where it doesn't want to work exactly how I want it to. But from here you could move the tree into place, see like, oh, how would that affect stuff. With Blender, you have Eevee, which is a real-time rendering engine, so you can get like real-time like lighting changes in your scene,
Mhm.
which is super exciting because like a lot of other packages, 3D packages, doesn't have that, or they don't have that. I mean, so you don't have this much control. Now, some of them you do now. Like there's like Octane or Redshift, for example.
Mhm.
I think like some of the more major ones like Arnold are trying to integrate that now. But I think Blender allows, at least for like concept artists, it allows for, you know, very inexpensive, like resource-wise, like 3D scenes. So like you don't have to like have like a crazy computer to pull this off, which is exciting. But yeah, so from here I'd like end up picking my composition, and I've got like I label the lenses here. So like this is like if I go into this one, it's like 32 millimeter, and they're all from like the same angle. So I was just seeing what the difference was, like how that would affect like the subtlety of like the storytelling that I was trying to do. And then like from here, I like decided that I liked 50 millimeter, and then I was just like, okay, I like 50 millimeter the most out of them all. Which composition do I want? So I was like playing around with like odd compositions of having like this tree lead down to a sword and link. You can maybe do something like this, maybe a bit better. So like that, or like this one, where it's like from behind the sword, which was reminiscent of this one here. It was like coming from behind the tree, so like I was just seeing if that might work better maybe. But I ended up going with this guy. Let's see which one. It's one of these. Oh yeah, I think it was like the 32 millimeter I ended up going with. Just because it allowed for like the best framing. Even though I liked how like the 50 millimeter looked for like the, I guess like perspective wise, it didn't allow for like as organic of like the framing I wanted, like the spacing and stuff of the compositional elements. So I ended up going with this one, and then from there I ended up bringing that into Photoshop. So let me just go through my layers real quick. So this would be like the render. And it's pretty much the same, straight from EV here. And then from there, I'd add adjustment layers to it, sort of just figuring out what sort of colors I'd want to enhance and change, and the values, and I want to push things darker. And then from there, I'd start painting over stuff, just subtly, just to get like nice transitions and to pop things out a bit further, or like add some extra details in certain areas. And then in this case, I was like, oh, maybe I should add Navi, which is like a little fairy from like the Legend of Zelda. And then like adding some dust effects, and then continuing painting over and like enhancing like some of the shapes and stuff. Adding some more subtle effects, and some additional adjustment layers on top of everything. And then eventually that would get me to the final image here, which would be this. And every once in a while I'll just put the like film bars on just to see what it looks like. And sometimes it makes it look a bit more cinematic, maybe like a video game cutscene or something, right?
Right.
So it's just always fun to see if it holds up in that sense. But that's my typical process for a lot of things. Like I'll tend to spend a bit of time building out like a kit, like the trees or like the ruins here, for example. I'll just set this to material preview. Like like they're customized. Like so for this, it has like the Triforce, which is like a lore thing, or like the sword, for example. And being able to like have these like elements and just be able to place them there. You don't have to like really think about it because it's already designed, because you already went through that step.
Mm-hmm.
It allows you to have a bit more freedom when it comes to like your scene creation, which I think is like super exciting. But yeah, that's my typical process, I guess, as far as using Blender. And I'm not sure. Do you want me to go over like my design process too, or?
Yeah, if you want to, yeah. For this one, it's definitely more key bashing way, like
Yes,
using 3D. It's
exactly.
definitely for Illustrator especially. So I think it's really good way, like using Blender, how to quickly, like say from your 2D sketches and into 3D, you put some placeholder down there. It's much easier for you to find the composition and the ways like you like shooting the scene, right? So yeah, that is the most valuable way to 3D sketching, and also the result like turns like super cinematic as well. Uh,
For
yeah,
sure.
the
Yeah.
EV effects definitely helps a lot.
Yeah. Eevee's the best, for
Oh
doing
yeah.
stuff like this. So yeah, that's my process for like I guess like keyframes. Like once I already have a design in place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like I guess my typical design process would be like like always starting like with sketches pretty much. And typically if it's like in this case a vehicle, I always do like orthographic views, like either like a side view or a top view, depending on what silhouette I want to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I build it out in 3D, and like figure out all the functionality aspects. Like in this case, it was like they wanted the turbines to like have like VTOL, so like it could like levitate in place, uh, and like have like articulating wings. And then from there, I'd use like the same process like I just showed in that little Blender demo, of like setting up your scene and having it placed in a way that is like compelling for like the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I just do a paint over on top. But most of like the design thinking and stuff, like how I approach it, was done in like this 3D phase and the sketch phase. And a lot of the times, like like I might do like these sketches first and then push the 3D into a few different versions of these sketches and then present the 3D because it just looks a bit more impressive. you know, but it depends. Some art directors like seeing these sketches, some don't. So it really depends on who I'm working with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but that's like my typical like design process. So it'd be like the same thing for like building out like a kit, right? So I'd do like sketches of like each bit of the kit and then model those out, and then I'd have those to place in my final scene, and then match the compositions I've already also sketched out. And it allows for pretty seamless and quick workflow, and it's
Mm-hmm.
very efficient, I feel, which allows you to like quickly iterate and make stuff, and also be collaborative with your team members. But yeah, that's my typical process. I hope that was helpful to everyone watching. Um,
Oh yeah, it's definitely. So I think for some beginners, they see people using Blender, but they don't know why they're using Blender. They just say, okay, so more and more people using it, so I have to catch up. So I can maybe getting easier to get in the industry with I know I got knowledge of 3D, right? So but they don't really know what like the benefit like 3D can, carry over. So yeah, so what it showed is really helpful, like in different ways doing design, or even doing like say the link one, right? So
yeah, more
for
illustration
illustration,
focused.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, so I think it's just a great tool to allow people to like get uh, very highly detailed images, like very high fidelity,
Mm-hmm.
without having to endlessly like paint over, your image over and over again until you get the perfect highlight, or the perfect core shadow on an object, right? I think it allows you to like bypass that and just focus on the idea, right? Which I think, which is what this career path is. It's all about the ideas you come up with and who has the best ideas, and how your ideas are unique and different from the next person, which is what makes everybody, I guess, valuable.
Right. Any like some interesting tip you want to share of the
I guess.
Blender?
Oh, geez. For Blender, I
Maybe
guess.
different showing off different render agent you mostly
Yeah,
use. Like
yeah, for sure. Let me see if I have a good example of.
yeah, to me, cause I'm using Blender as well. So as you said, like the EV, like some looks like a most. I use the EV a lot. Like simply way is just like it's just fast. I don't have to wait. I don't like hit render and go sleep. So I just like okay, I want to review it. So just like one click and it give you the almost like 80% finished image looking. So yeah, but I think for the new version Blender, the cycle speed up a bit. So sometimes I can try see what cycle gives me, maybe more accurate shadow detail stuff. Yeah, so
Yeah,
wonder what kind of thing like, draw your eyes more.
yeah. So like I use I use EV cycles, and then I also use another render engine, which is Octane. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll just open up a thing that I was working on last night. Um, I guess I'll close this Legend of Zelda stuff. Or actually, I'll leave it open just so we can like have the, the differences, I guess, because I think this one is using cycles. So I guess like so we've already like close Photoshop. Let's close that. Okay, so because I'm gonna be running all of these at the same time, so I don't want my computer dying during the live stream. But alright, cool. So guess like this would be cycles if it loads up, which is a bit more accurate, like lighting wise, compared to Eevee. But it's a bit slower. Um, so that's like the one downside is that you do need a bit more of a beefier computer to like run denser scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and like it does have this denoiser now, which is like super nice, which you can just turn on. I think it might be on by default, but it's just like for viewport, it's under this tab here in the render settings. You can just click viewport, and then normally this is off, so you get like this grainy image.
Mm-hmm.
So like just having that on is always like helpful. And then another thing that I like tend to like to do is like always have like some sort of like atmosphere in the scene possible. And just so that you can get like nice like I guess ambient lighting in places. Um, and there's like a few ways you can do that. You can do that with like a fog cube, or you can like set like the volume up in the scene and just plugging it into the world shader settings. So
Mm-hmm.
shader, this tab world. The node is a volume scatter node. It's like one of these guys. And typically I just like plug it in there subtly. So it gets you like different
Wow.
moody settings depending on what you're going for, right? Like what
Yeah.
story you're trying to tell. Like in the final painting for this, I had like the monster's eyes glowing and stuff. And this is like for an NFT project that I was working on. But like stuff like that is super valuable to like have the ability to do. Like pretty quickly. And then like Eevee, like everyone saw with that Legend of Zelda demo, where you could literally like fly around the scene, and it was like real time, and you could see your lighting accurately, move stuff around, and there was no lag practically. And then this last one is Octane, which is something that I've been getting back into. Like I used to use it a lot actually. But I'm just gonna, while that's rendering up, like I used it on a ton of stuff. Like I used it on this thing. This was like old Blender, on like the old version of Octane, because at the time it was faster than Cycles, and this is before Eevee came out. So this was like the closest to real-time rendering you could get at the time. I used to like this stuff too, and like at the time it was super useful. But then when Eevee came out and Cycles got better, I didn't see a need to use it. But now I'm trying to get back into it just because I've been looking at let's see, this guy Paul here.
He is big.
Yes, he's I don't know, one of my like favorite. Let me see if I can shut this off. This loads. There we go. And like he uses Octane, like that's pretty much all he uses. Like he models the stuff, throws it in Octane, which I think he uses the standalone version, not the Blender integrated version, which is what I use. But yeah, and then he gets like these amazing renders, right? But the thing is, he also has a supercomputer from this guy. So
oh, okay.
So I'm just trying. I'm trying to figure out how to reach this, but with only one graphics card, right? Which I think it's possible, but it's just you have to be smart about it. So that's like currently what I'm trying to figure out, and why I'm starting to switch back to Octane, and I'm starting to use it in my work, like my day-to-day work as well for certain things, because it allows you to get like really nice, like nice lighting effects. You got like in-camera bloom and stuff, and little lens flares, like stuff that you don't have to like paint, right? So it just adds a bit more realism, like out of the box.
Well, that render looks much more realistic compared to Eevee.
Yeah,
Even
exactly.
Cycle.
Yeah. Like I think it's even better than Cycles. Like it just looks like, I don't know, it looks very photographic,
Yeah.
It's something that I'm after. So I'm using this, which is like a work in progress, and I'll probably end up finishing it this weekend. Of just using as like a test case of like how far I can push Octane. So eventually, like I'll end up, like I want to end up modeling out a ship landing here, and, like some mountains in the background and stuff. But like I'm relearning the tool now, so it's a bit of trial and error. But I think that's always fun, So this is like a case of using personal work to learn a new tool and then keep using that tool in your day-to-day working life. But yeah, it's a pretty basic. Leo, are you still there?
Yeah.
Okay. CC just opened up, so I got scared. I was like, oh no, I hit a hotkey that closed it or something.
Bye.
Okay. But yeah, just using your personal work to allow you to make more enhanced like professional work, I guess, is like my big push for this project.
Yeah, the first I look at the Octane, especially for the color wise, I think the shadow and the lighting area, they automatically gave the color contrast like cold versus more warm. So instead of like say if you go Eevee and even Cycle, so you have to adjust the HDRI something, you have to twist that kind of color to get this kind of level. But like for this one, you switch into the render, so suddenly they give you
It just
the
works, yeah.
yeah, it just works.
Which
That is
is
so
which
so
is
good.
cool. Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then like from here you can get, like different options for like the sunlight. And you can like
Oh,
like move it around. So like if you watch this shadow, you can get like different lighting scenarios pretty quickly. And it's grainy, but like it's pretty interactive.
mm-hmm.
Especially like if you're in like a camera view, and you like zoom out a bit, it tends to resolve pretty quickly. Um, so
Cause you got a 38, 39.
3090, yeah, yeah. So it
So
does
this can
help,
go
but you can
fast.
get really nice, like like this might be good, and then you
Mhm.
could, uh, you know, have like a crazy like lighting scenario, and it's pretty amazing how the lights work. As far as like like it's very accurate to
Wow.
like a camera, right? Like the
Jeez.
bloom and stuff, and everything's interactive as well. So you can like in this case like looking at let's move this to the side so it's easier to look at. Like, you can like increase the intensity, right? To where like it almost blinds you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you can have like nothing at all, so like no like lens flare stuff. I tend to have it like on a subtle like 2 or 3 for this.
We could change the flare of
Yeah,
the
and it's
light.
in
Oh.
real time, right? So like you get like nice bloom and stuff. And then you can like also change like the amount of like star
Mm-hmm.
points on the flare as well.
Lighting rays.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like the blur of it too. So like you don't want it too intense. It's like let's see, like so that's with no blur. And like typically cameras don't pick it up as sharp unless it's like really like the
Mm-hmm.
sun or something where you'd have like very like hard lines, right? So you can like
Right.
mess with the blur of that glare, and then you get like nice fall off, where it's very like soft and I guess cinematic looking,
It feels like it's a combined, the upgrade version EV with Cycle together.
Yeah, exactly. Like it has like that. It's like as interactive almost as Eevee. Like I think it's just like a little bit behind as far as like how fast it was. Like if it just resolved a bit quicker, then I'd be happy. Um, but it's as accurate, a bit more accurate than like Cycles, which is also really exciting. But
Right.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
just for
So
Cycle, they don't have the glooming in the Cycle, so that is a way. Feels like, geez, you can paint over it definitely, but you just want to, preview it in 3D, right? As well.
yeah, exactly. Or you have to like use the compositor or something like like the like setting up the compositor nodes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get that's like the way you preview it, which is also a pain because like you have to render it first before you can even see what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's like little things like that, which is making me explore tools like Octane,
Mm.
and then also seeing all this crazy stuff. So uh, I don't know. I'm gonna just try to get it as close to this, just to see, just to see if it's possible, with like the tools that I've got right now, and then maybe make it into a painting or something afterwards. I've got like so many projects like this though, where it's just tests that they end up getting 80% of the way there, but then they're
Mm-hmm.
just like sitting on my hard drive, never to be finished. But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's already looking amazing.
thanks man, I appreciate it. Um, yeah, eventually I might model out all the interior rooms too, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think I have real quick. Let's see if I have it here. It was a Cycles version of like an interior, like a similar space. looks like this. But same thing, like, like it was more just like a test just to see like how certain lighting would work for like certain stuff that I was working on. But
Yeah, if you don't show Octane and it looks okay.
yeah, I know
But after
exactly.
seeing that, right? So
After seeing Octane, it's like night and
yeah.
day though, because like the bloom here, it's like you have to like go into the compositor, have to render it out or something. It's not as accurate either, right? Well, like another cool thing is with Octane, which is something that is pretty crazy, is that you can also do color correction like in the camera, right? So
Oh, they got a preset. Okay.
yeah, so it's like all like LUTs, like LUTs, like in Photoshop. Like if you like ever use like color lookup, I'll just open it up real quick just to show that off.
Yeah, no friend, they do map painting, so they have the uh like say you have to, make like say 10 different images. You want a 10 looks like consistent on the color. So they have like one adjust layer in the final. So to twist all the color into, the similar one.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
typically
something
they
like that.
use like lookup tables is what they're called.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
typically they set them like the color and like this is like the Photoshop version, right? But you can do this in your 3D viewport, which is also amazing, right? With Octane. So that's another thing that I'm also playing with, because you can get like very similar crazy effects, and it changes the entire feeling of your image, right? I could have like, if you wanted it like a cyberpunky sort of thing. Let's see, it's like more subtle stuff, and high contrast stuff or low contrast stuff, and everything in between, which is pretty interesting. And then like if you don't if you don't want that stuff, you can have it just be the normal like sRGB, and then just do all the corrections in Photoshop, right? So yeah, no, I'm just excited about this tool, so can't wait to dig deeper into it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. The Octane is a big thing. I saw people using the plugin over. So only the plugin, but it's not that fast as the standalone version.
Oh yeah, yeah. So the standalone version, which I have, is I think it's this one here. Yeah, it's way faster than this. But the cool thing about like the Blender version is that you don't have to like export, So that's why I'm trying to just see like where this breaks, I guess. Because if you don't have to like export stuff to another software,
Right, that's
then still
painful.
then it would be like the best tool ever practically. So I'm just trying to see like how far it can be used, I guess. I'll let you
All
know
right.
if anything good comes out of it. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, it looks super wild to me. I barely use the Octane, but I tried it several times before. I think it's compared to Eevee, it's like turns kind of slower, so I just gave it up.
Oh yeah, Eevee is always gonna be the fastest, I think. Like,
Yeah.
but I think eventually I'll also want to try to use Unreal Engine 5 as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is the best one.
Yeah, and it just got released today, like official, or not today, yesterday, I think. It got officially released, like the Unreal Engine 5. So I'll probably end up looking at that too to see how it could be used for like concept art and all that.
Yeah, let me know if they can, export those the different passes so we can merge
Yeah,
it in Photoshop.
that'd be amazing. And then you could probably animate everything too. Because a crazy tool. So,
Right.
yeah, that's pretty much, I guess, like my journey up until this point. I guess like now, I guess we didn't really touch on it, but yeah, now I'm working at Tesla with Leo, which is a
Mm-hmm.
super awesome experience. You know, working with our other coworker Moa as well. It's been super awesome. The experiences have been crazy. And then, you know, and you guys saw my process up until like this for like all my images and stuff. So yeah, that's everything pretty much.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much,
Yeah,
uh,
no, thanks for having
for
me.
the share. Also, some questions, like say, I mean, I just asked for the new beginners, like say you can give some advice to them, like say what kind of practice you do, and one step at one to get into doing some big title movie like Marvel movies, yeah, what kind of practice, like daily practice, or what kind of milestone you can achieve before you get into, work on those big title game or movie.
Yeah, I guess like for practice and stuff, what I did a ton of, let's see, I think I still have, go back to my
Or what do you
resume.
have been through, what kind of struggle you went through, and how do you figure it out, and how do you, uh, hit the bottleneck and then, break it,
Yeah,
level up.
I guess like for I think that one would be good, like the whole like the big struggles and stuff. I guess like for like art, right? Like there you tend to hit a lot of places where you'll hit a certain level, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then it's either your eye doesn't see like how to get better, or like you don't know the tools yet, or something like that. Um, and that's something that I think everyone runs into eventually. Like no matter how good you get, you always hit a plateau or like a wall of some sort. Um, and like just knowing that like it's just a matter of time before you get better, and like
Mm-hmm.
just the more you fail, and this is like something that like I'm a big like proponent of, is like always try new stuff. Like obviously don't do it on like work stuff if you're working, right? But like if
Mm-hmm.
you're still studying, always just experiment and like try new stuff, or try like watch a tutorial and practice what they're doing, or always try to keep learning. Because like usually when you hit like a wall like that, it's always just because you might be missing one thing that'll like push you over the edge of that wall, right? Um, but it's very hard to pinpoint it, right? So another thing I do is always try to like look back at your work and try to dissect it, and then like if you have like artistic like I guess like heroes, like like I guess like for like concept art, like where was he? Jama is like a great example of this, right? Of
Mm-hmm.
like putting your stuff up next to his and seeing like not like not from a style standpoint, but just from like a quality standpoint,
Mm-hmm.
and like as far as like his decision making, and like ask yourself like, is your decision making on that same level or close? um, and you can do this for anyone. Like there's a like especially if you want to work in film, like like a good person to look at, this guy Steve Messing, um, and like looking at his stuff and just like using that as your like your quality bar, or like anyone you pick really, like whoever's listening to this, like whoever, like if you want to be an illustrator too, like look at your idols there and just try to be like on that same level, I guess, is always a good driving force, or
Mm-hmm.
at least it was for me. And that's like what always kept me like always searching and always like pushing and like getting myself to that next level. Um, and I think is like something that you should always hold on to and try not to lose, because that's what will keep you competitive, and I guess keep you relevant, in the industry.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, that's the one I can think about. Like, say, when you talk about like how to, make progress and to level up, and I just like remember or like keep thinking how I become better and better. So yeah, it's really makes sense. So
Yeah.
yeah, another one is say, so when you do practice and as well as you do production work in the company, so what kind of problem or struggle you will overcome over there, and how do you tackle that?
Yeah. So I guess like
In terms of artistic and technical, I think
yeah.
technical is easy. Just watch YouTube.
Yeah, no, technical is the easy part. Is just like, look up tutorials for what you want or like YouTube
Yeah.
videos and see what's out there.
Hmm.
But from like an artistic like standpoint, as far as like a way of thinking, right?
Yeah.
Um, a lot of that is just like something that you have to like, I guess, learn. I guess as far as like not in the sense of like just watching a tutorial or whatever, but it's something that you have to like be looking for, right, or searching like very methodically for. Um, where you're like for example, like how I look at like films and stuff, and those inspire me a lot. Well, say like another person might look at games, and those might inspire them in a different way, or anime or manga, or like all these other artistic, or even fine art, right? Like people
Hmm.
used to like Craig Mullins loves John Singer Sargent, for
Hmm.
example, so like whatever inspires you can help also like interject or inject your work with that, I guess that spark of inspiration that you might have not, it might have not been like burning the brightest, that makes sense.
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. Um, I think um, I think artistic, that kind of problems, or for some reason I find lots of my students they have the same problem. Like say when they're starting something. Okay, so when the class started, when the class is starting, say, okay, we're gonna do the homework, and the first question to them is like, I don't know what to do, and I don't even know what I love, and
Mm,
so combine the two, it's like I don't really know what I love to do, right? So this become the main problem for lots of the, the 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 beginners,
mm.
and in terms of that, so they don't really know,
Like if they
what to,
want to go into
yeah.
like film, or even if or like video games, or even if they want to do illustration or concept art, you mean?
That is one part. Another thing is like, say, we do a concept, they don't really know um, what kind of concept I want to do. So end up like just copying others people's work and say Craig Mullins' work is good, so I just pick one and find their good composition, so I just copy that, and a good design from that guy, I copy that, I combine them. Okay, so it's my work,
Mm-hmm. Oh, right.
right? Yeah, so it feels like that their brain is kind of empty, and also they don't really know the right way to finding references and to the right way to learn from the references, or to say we inspired by someone, right? So they just say, okay, the way they inspire or study from others, they just like take the thing directly from others and into
Mm-hmm.
their own thing. So like a recreating, right? So it's not
Yeah,
like from scratch to finish.
yeah. I think that's probably like the hardest thing to like learn and also teach, right? Um, and a lot of it is like you have to be looking for what you, I guess, like, right? Like, or another good way about doing this is like doing some research, and like let's say, like people really like Craig Mullins, for example, right? And then
Hmm.
like who does Craig Mullins look at, right? Or what does Craig Mullins look at? Like for all his stuff, right? And then what does that person look at, right? And then just keep going down that, and then eventually you'll reach the most purest form of that, I guess, inspiration, where you're not pulling directly from that artist, right? You're pulling from, you know, the lineage of that artist, I guess, and whatever they built into themselves, right? So
Right.
like, which I think is hard to do as far as like putting in the time to like look through all this stuff and figure that out. But I think it's worth it because then from there it gives you a point, a jumping off point where you can go like, oh, okay, so I like so let's actually, so I don't have to open up something. So Paul, for example, really cool work, right? But if you just were to copy Paul's stuff, it would be very obvious, right? Or like just take his language of forms and you know how he does like little greebly bits, right? But if you were to like do some research and figure out what inspires Paul, like for Paul, one of his big inspirations is this game called Homeworld, which is a like an old sci-fi video game from the 90s, right? And then from
Wow.
there, you know, like it's I think even here you'll get like a similar ship. That, like if you look at this ship, it's very. I think it was in here. He has something that's like sort of inspired. Where is it? Oh yeah, here it is. Yeah. So you know, like it's you can see the inspiration, right? But like you're looking at stuff that is like a more pure form because like this is through Paul's eyes, right? He's taking Homeworld, like a lot of his designs is like you know he's taking all the stuff like so like Homeworld is one, right? But then like he also likes like the Aliens films. I spelled that wrong.
I'm surprised he looked back that much, like to see some such old works. I saw that like he just watching some, the latest military, battleship stuff.
Yeah, no, and that's the stuff that makes his art and like his designs unique is that he's you know he's taking like these games, right? Like the stuff from his childhood and when he was younger, like late teenage years or early adult years, right? And like
Mm-hmm.
you know mixing it with like the films he liked, right? So like but then also mixing it with like modern like you know like more modern like military stuff, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
so he's like taking like you know like his video game inspiration, like his film inspirations, and then his real life inspirations and mashing them up, right? And the way he mashes them up is what makes him unique, right? It's like another
Right.
person could look at all of these same things, right, and come up with a completely different like feel to their work, right? And
Mm-hmm.
like that's something that's like always interesting is that um, you know like you like you could literally have like two people look at the same stuff their entire life, right? But there's always
Mm-hmm.
going to be something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what's important is like you know taking like going past this stuff, like going past the art station stuff, um, and just you know curating your own, I guess, visual library would be a good term for it, and like really building that up. Um, because like the more you build up that visual library and the less you rely on looking at artists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or looking at even like super old artists, like you'll be way better off. Like another good example, like is my buddy Steve Wang, or I guess everybody knows him by Swang. Um,
He's
where
back too. Oh yeah.
this guy, yeah,
The
and like his work, you know, it's he's taking a lot of his inspirations as a kid as well, or like stuff that he used to watch, like you know, Ghost in the Shell. Um, so like, uh, like this, for example, has a lot of like similar ways of breaking up his buildings, so like he's taking that, but then also mixing that with like his real life experience as well, because he was in like a city like Vancouver, so he's probably taking some inspiration from that as well. And then using that, and then also looking up reference of like Hong Kong, like the like Kowloon walled city there, and injecting some of that probably. But then on top of that, he's also using like inspirations like old 1980s painters, right? Like going way back, like John Harris or John Berkey is another one who
Mm-hmm.
really really good sci-fi artists. Like they're like contemporaries of Sid Mead, another great person to look at, and somebody that I look at a ton personally.
Mm-hmm.
But he's using that stuff. Where is he? And then bringing that into his work, right? So like if so like this is more of a direct inspiration, right? But then from there, it evolved into him, becoming his own thing, right? But using those same, I guess, like techniques, that he learned along the way.
I remember today he released the like Redis in the image tutorial for Landsquare. It's super cool.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how he pulled this off. It's crazy. But I think that's like if I were to like talk to like students and stuff, that would be the main thing, is just always look back. Like go research. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's so much that you can learn from that, and it just makes you that much more unique. And then like I know it's hard to like not look at like contemporary artists, and
Mm-hmm.
like I have trouble with that now too sometimes, to be honest. But like I think that's the important thing. It's always just you know find what you like, cling on to that, and keep finding more stuff that you like that isn't on the front page of our station. Yeah. But yeah.
All right. So yeah, I think you right hit the point. Like say, um, the classics. The art came from life, but surpasses from life. So yeah, that is super good, and is the right way to design. Combine three or two totally different things from totally different industry, and merge them together in a artistic way. So this is how people become big.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that's how you'll stand out, as an artist. Is like
Yeah.
how you do that. Um, yeah. I guess. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think it's all good.
All right, awesome.
Any other tips you wanna give the new beginner?
I don't like. I guess like never give up.
Never give up, eh?
Yeah, that's the big one. Just keep pushing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, like
eventually you'll get there.
sometimes I say like say some students like wanna push to finish one homework, and they just like rushing to finish it and leave some like a very rough brush stroke on top. Feels like it's just like finish it. So every time I saw this, I just like show them, the say some big ass work like Java's work, how details like a quality level down there, and how much rendering that those people down. Like even though they're masters, right? So they still spend a lot of time on finish one each piece.
Yeah.
So I think this is like, the everybody instead of, only the new beginners, like same as us, should keep pushing and always looking back and always looking at those people who doing great in this industry, and how hard they can, how much they respect their own work, and they don't. I mean, in their eyes, I don't think they would allow there's one even little mistake on their own work. So they try to be 100% perfect. So yeah, so that is really worth respect from us.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's important to, always be doing that with your own work and always, like
Yeah.
pushing yourself to that, that next level if you can, or try to, always try to make that your next piece better than your last piece,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
All right, man. So thanks so much for spending time with me and amazing work. Yeah, and your Blender,
oh yeah,
Octane,
yeah, oh yeah.
definitely that shocked me a lot. So when I have time, I really want to look into it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And let me know if you have any questions about it. Just you know, just message me
Cool.
whenever. Yeah, if anyone else has questions that it's like listening to this, they can also reach out if they have questions.
Yep. Yep. I'll let you know. All right, man. I'd like to go, and thanks again for sharing the workshop with us. And maybe I'll see you next time
All right,
in
yeah.
person. I mean,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Either I'll fly up to Toronto or you can visit LA. One of the two.
yeah. I gotta push that bit to make the second